Paul, you're intimately familiar with the team you're playing, the franchise you're playing. I'm curious, when you were a coach here, how did things change when Rod Brindamore came here as a player? And then what have you seen as a coach that has changed here since he came here and became head coach?
Oh, I said I was going to keep it short.
Yes.
We could start at the time out of Egypt here if you want. It's a long time ago. I'm not that familiar with this team anymore. I'm not. But we were kind of on the cusp of trying to add players. This wasn't originally a destination place. I mean, we had to go to Greensboro for our home games, right? And then it got built to the point. I go back. I think couldn't come to an agreement with Keith Primo, and Rod came in, and he came. The timing of it was perfect because Roddy came in. We had kind of the Marty Jelena, Gary Roberts crew had just come in before, and it became and fitness became a priority. I'll throw another name out there, Pete Friesen, who was the longtime strength coach and athletic therapist, which would be important for that. So it took it to a National Hockey League level, and I don't think, I know when we came out of Hartford, we weren't there yet. We just weren't. And so the standard was set then. I think kind of the same thing happened, right? We get to the final, miss the playoffs, win the Stanley Cup, miss the playoffs, kind of get back to the conference final, and then go for a stretch of kind of the true rebuild has to happen. And then Roddy came in at the right time and put in a very cohesive structure to their game. I think that Carolina and Florida, the two teams in the East that play, I'm not being disrespectful to the other teams, but most consistently to their identity on a regular basis. When you come watch Carolina play or watch us play, you get a pretty good idea what it's going to look like. They don't win every game, obviously, but he's done a marvelous job here setting a style of play and being able to get that out of his team every night.
Stay on the right.
Bill, a two-part question. First, with Seth and Brad being able to get them both at the trade deadline, just what have you seen from them over the 10 weeks that they've been here and how they fit into your group? And then the sort of a bigger picture off of that, just what goes into identifying guys who you feel like not only will help you produce on the ice, but also fit into the culture that you guys have built over these last few years?
On the ice, they've been, shall I say, as advertised. You saw last night, Brad's a big moment guy. His personality has helped his line mates. He's helped our team, his presence in the room, from his preparation, his experience, his professionalism. And then I'll answer part two at the same time. And same with Seth. Seth's come in. He's adjusted to the way we play hockey, which I think suits him well. As far as identifying those guys as players, I mean, Brad Marchand, I think everybody knows, what he brings and what he does. And Seth as well. I had Seth in Columbus. On the personal level, we were fortunate enough obviously I knew Seth. And I had him in the World Championships. I had him in Columbus. So, and it wasn't just me. And Sonny Mehta comes through in the analytics and says, boom, that's a guy. It works. And similarly with Brad, through friends and mutual acquaintances, used to represent Tuukka Rask. You hear stories about this wonderful person, this great teammate, this Brad Marchand. Really? That guy? Yeah, no, he's you have no idea what a special person is. So we were blessed that it wasn't anything we really had to go out and find. We knew.
Right side, second row.
Paul, question about being halfway through defending a cup. What have you learned about it? There's always a way of looking at it that it's easier if you've won one. On the other hand, you have a target on your back because you've won one. Is there anything easier or harder about this run based on that?
I'll separate the regular season from the playoffs because the playoffs, this is not true in the playoffs, but you have to find a different energy source. You're right. Like, we got everybody's A game, and you don't have that energy source of driving for it, of the dream. You know, you're chasing a dream, so you've achieved it. But you got a different energy source, and you just got to learn how to harness that. It's how much they care about each other. The bond in that room is very strong between players. The regular season was a challenge. Our schedule was a challenge this year, and you're kind of, as the coach, looking for signs. Are you full? Are you no longer hungry for it? But what I think we saw is, what I believe is that they were surviving the regular season. They were excited to get to the playoffs, and now kind of the fun part started. And this is what they played for, because they know what it felt like at the end. This is where their time now. So we had to kind of grind through that regular season. But in the playoffs, the joy's back in the room. The bonds are strong, and they're excited.
Stay on the right, Luke.
Paul, about Bradley. What's it like as a coach, sort of incorporating a player who's, probably for 31 teams in the league, been an antagonist for his entire career, and obviously you guys have incorporated him well, and he's fit in. But just what, as a coach, when you have a player who you've had to game plan against or had to think about now coming into your room, what's that like?
I'm trying to figure the start on this, Luke. You watch the games. He plays at a very high energy and is an intense guy. But he's a survivor more than anything. He's not a big man. And to play the number of games that he's played, as hard as he's played, at his size, there's a compete in that guy. But I didn't know. With 2 playoff series, I started to appreciate just his game, just the hockey. And then you get on the ice in practice and you see his hands. There's so much more. The story and the narrative, and I'm not saying it's not true, he's hard to play against, is the smallest piece of this guy's story. But you can't know that from the outside. I didn't know it from the outside. I mean, I hated Matthew Tkachuk too. And then you get him, and there's so much more to these guys. They're actually exceptionally wonderful people in our room. Like Brad Marchand is so positive all the time, in game, when we were down in games, at breakfast. He's just wired to be happy. And he's got an incredible set of hands on him. You look at the growth of Lundell and Luosterainen in the short period of time. You've heard that line before. Great players make the people around them better. And he is, Eetu Luosterainen, I believe, is leading our team in scoring in the playoffs right now. Brad's a big part of that.
Left side, Jameson, then Mike.
Bill, Paul just mentioned Anton Lundell. Obviously, you guys are forever linked as your first ever draft pick here at the Panthers. What's it been like kind of watching him grow throughout these playoffs, kind of trial by fire, and now just become the player he's become at just 23 years old?
It's interesting on a couple. There's a personal level, right, where I represented his dad and knew him as a person, and watching him grow as a person, watching him take on more and more responsibility, bigger roles on the team. And then there's the learning curve for me, watching a young guy grow and get better. And what can we take away from that as far as player evaluation and a pretty famous word that you use a lot, patience, and understanding that when you see the little glimpses of what somebody can do, it might be a while before they do it consistently and regularly. So the biggest, maybe not the biggest, but one of the main things that I've taken away from watching Anton and evaluating him is actually how to do it and how to appreciate all of the pressures, all of the little things in the game, the learning curve the players have to go through. And it's been on a personal level, actually a lot of fun to watch him.
Paul, you mentioned energy sources and trying to keep the guys motivated in a year where last year you won it all. I mean, how much was it for you also coming into this year? How was the feeling different when finally you achieved something that we all know you were striving for 20 some odd years, and now you got to get ready again to do it after a short summer? How was this different for you?
Well, part of it way better. You're still in a good mood. But the challenge was the unknown of it. So your team gets fatigued all the time, and then it's should be going, and you know the logistics of a year, when to push your team, when not, when you got to come off and when you got to get on them. And then we had other unusual things. Our last exhibition game was in Quebec City. We flew back the next day, had the ring storm. We started the season. Then we went on 7-11. We went to Finland. We finished 9 in 15 days. We had 10 sets of back-to-backs in 2025. So in a normal setup, you would have sort of an idea of what it should look like. But it's different the next year after you win. That's why it's so hard. You see so many teams, well, they don't necessarily miss the playoffs, but they're out in the first round. So there's a lot of unknown for me. And I think I may have learned more this year than any year in the last 10, because the last 10 are almost like each other, and this one was different. So there were a lot more questions in the coach's office. Where are we at? Are we, how far from that game? And you are fooled with revisionist history, because when you win the cup, you won all 16 games. You dominated all 16 of those games, and you won 82 regular season games the year before. Like, you were just, nobody beat you. You won. You were the greatest. You forget that you lost 8-1 in the final. You just don't even think about that anymore. So you get into a Tuesday night game in November, and that's your expectation. We should be up by 12. It's 5 minutes into the game. You have a completely skewed perspective on what your team should look like. So you're constantly trying to check your perspective. So what I did was I kept the year prior's schedule on my wall. We got these big boards that have our schedule month to month. I spent a lot of time looking at it and going, man, we sucked there. Like, we lost, it helped. Like, we won 2 of, I think, 9 games in March last year after the trade deadline. And we went through almost the same thing this year. So you look at it and go, okay, we're all right. It's just where we're at. So it was a really challenging year, but I think I learned a lot.
Right side, third row, Chip.
Yeah, Paul, you're talking about the scheduling problem. You play an intense game 7, or you go into an intense situation in Toronto, jump on a plane and come straight to Raleigh, play a different team. One but a different scenario. Just how challenging is that for you?
I would schedule it exactly as it is now, given the choice. We've been through a game 7 before. The last thing that we would want to do is play game 7 in Toronto and play 2 days, because you can't fly home, get on a plane, and fly back. And now the emotion and everything comes right out of it. We want to keep going. So we played 9 games in 15 days at the end of the season. We just played 3 games in a row, and we had 2 days off at the start of it. So this is the lightest schedule we've had this year. Like, we're fine.
Left side.
Just, Paul, where's Matthew Tkachuk's game at? And even if he's not, scoring goals left and right like we've seen him in the past, like how big of an impact can he still have on a game, on a series?
I thought he was considerably behind it in the Tampa series. I played him 12 minutes the first night. A lot of that was power play. And then he's just kind of built, and now he's back to close to 20, and I don't think about it. He's back. And I know he's like 100% taking hits, giving hits. We don't talk about his minutes. So he's had a really big impact. I think it built through the Toronto series. I had them almost in the 3-hole at the start, but that's because the Lundell's line was going so well. And then last night I ran those guys hard because they were right.
We'll do one more question. Right side, front row.
Bill, how would you describe the challenge of retooling a championship roster?
In the cap world, everybody has to do it. So I don't. We rely significantly on the scouts, on the analytics guys, to identify players, and then we try to find ways to fit pieces into the puzzle. And it's not always the most expensive or the least expensive. It's the best fit. It's the best fit for that part. And our guys have done a fantastic job of identifying people who would be a fit, and also at a price point that we think we can get them in. And players have made sacrifices too. I mean, I think you look across our roster, and the commitment from our guys has been to stay and to be part of it. So we've been blessed with that.
We'll do one more in the back.
Paul, kind of a 2-part question, but First,
Last question's too.
of course, with Frederick Anderson, just what have you seen from him? Like he's obviously playing so well in the playoffs, and then from behind the bench when you got two goalies who are both playing extremely well. Just does it add any extra energy or juice to watching these games?
I don't have a comment on Frederick Anderson. I just haven't got to that. That's what this afternoon is. So it was all Toronto. Sergei's been great for us. He is at a point in his career. Like the games that we played against Toronto and Tampa are incredibly difficult. They're not a high shot volume team, right? And he'll go stretches where he had 7-8 minutes without a shot attempt. And then it's Willie and Islander on a breakaway, Braden Point down the pipe. And so there was the mental toughness that you need to have, mental strength that you need to have to stay in those games. I think you only really find in a veteran guy who's played a lot of games, who understands that when a game gets quiet, you have to stay in your place, in your area, mentally be right there. So he was the perfect guy for us to play against the opponents we played. It would be quiet stretches of game, and then they were on you. So I think we're going to see a few more pucks to the net in this one.